We're going to continue our photo manipulation unit by looking a little bit at color, specifically about taking color away in certain parts and keeping in other parts. So on the screen you'll see I found this great image of graffiti. It's really pretty, really well done, really impressive, and I was trying to think of ways to make it more interesting. And what I came up with is sort of pulling the color out of certain areas. And so when I make this top layer invisible, you'll see that what I've done is I took the color out of almost all the image. That's called desaturating it. But I left the color in certain areas that I thought really highlighted the image as a whole. And I think it looks really cool. So we're going to go ahead and learn how to do that today. And most of this stuff you should understand already if you've done the previous assignments. It really all comes down to using layers in a smart way. So of course, your first step is going to go find a piece of graffiti on the internet to work with. So I've opened up Google Chrome, which is my preferred web browser, and I typed in graffiti in the search bar, and then I went and clicked on images, so I get just the images. And you'll see I've got lots and lots of images to choose from. There's going to be literally thousands of choices. What I am going to do for sure is come over here and specify that I only want large images. This is very important to get a nice, good product at the end. And once again, you're going to see that I've got tons and tons of choices. Find one that you like, find one that's very colorful, find one that you can imagine taking the color out of and still looking really nice. Of course, when you find that image, click on it, and then it's very important that when you do this step, you also click on full-size image. That's going to give you the whole big picture. Exactly how I want it. I'm going to right-click, I'm going to save the image into my folder, and I'm going to go to GIMP and I'm going to open up that picture. So I'm going to pause it now and I'm going to go do that so we can get started. So once I had saved my image, I opened up GIMP, went to File and opened up the image that I had. And now it's time to get started. Once again, very important that the first thing I do when I want to manipulate this image is right-click on it over here in the layers. And I'm going to add an alpha channel. Okay. Now, I'm going to be using a lot of layers this time, so I'm going to be very careful with what I'm doing. And this time, I'm going to make sure that I name all my layers. So this one I'm going to call it the color hard copy. I'm going to make sure that I always have a copy of this layer because I'm going to need it throughout the entire process. I'm going to press enter, and it's got a name for it. Real quick, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come down here and create a duplicate of that. That one's called color hard copy. Copy is a copy of that layer. Double click on that. I'm going to call this the bottom BW for black white copy. Now, I call it bottom, so I better go ahead and put it on the bottom layer. Or I'm going to move this up. This never works when I'm recording. There we go. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is this bottom layer, I'm going to go ahead and make it black and white. I'm going to desaturate it. So I'm going to go up to Colors. I'm going to go to Desaturate. I'm going to have three options here. I'm going to have Lightness, Luminosity, and Average. So Lightness, Luminosity, and Average. I actually like the average one the best. You can go through the three of them and see which one you like. Press OK. And now I'm seeing the black and white version because over here in my layers bar, that's the only one that's visible. I have this black and white copy, and my color copy right now is invisible. The eye is gone. I cannot see it. If I turn the eye back on, that color copy is sitting on top of the black and white copy, so that's what I actually see. I see the colors. So whenever I want to see just the black and white, I turn that off. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to make another copy from the color version. Okay, right there, it's on top. I'm going to go ahead and move it down so it's in the middle somewhere. And I'm going to call this the first letter. This is going to be the first letter that I take out and keep colorized. Okay, and by now you should have an idea of how I'm going to do this. I found it easier to use the paths to take a letter out. You might find it easier to use the quick mask, and I'm going to leave that up to you. I'm going to show you how to do it in the paths menu. Very simple. I'm going to click on the main window. I'm going to zoom in a bit. Actually, I'm going to zoom it out real quick by pressing the minus key. First thing I need to do is have a plan, decide which letters I want to keep colorized and which ones I don't. So make sure you have an idea going in of what you're actually going to do. So I've looked at it, and I think what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to keep this right here, this green letter right here. I'm going to keep that color. So I'm going to zoom into it. I'm going to grab my path tool, and just like before, I'm going to go all the way around this letter. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause the video while I do this so you don't have to watch me do the whole thing. So I've laid my path all the way around. I've come back to the beginning, and you'll remember that when I click on the very first node again, I need to hold down the Control key to close the loop. Okay, and now you can see my path around here, and I'm going to go back. I'm going to tweak these a little bit. I'm going to pull this one up a little bit, pull this one down a little bit. It's up to you to make sure that this looks the way it should look. Okay, this one over here needs to be lifted up. When I've got it the way I want it, everything looks good, I'm going to press the Enter key, and that's going to turn my path into a selection. So now I have this letter selected. Now I could erase it, and I'll show you what that would do. I'll turn that off. If I press delete right now, what I did is I deleted the color part, and what shines through is the black and white copy underneath. And that's sort of the very opposite of what I'm trying to do here. So I'm going to press Control Z and undo. If I want to delete everything else off the screen, I need to go to Select. I need to invert my selection. So everything else is selected right now. Now when I press delete, everything else gets deleted, and so what shines through is the black and white copy on the bottom. If you look really closely on my layer here, you'll see that on this layer, all there is a very small green swirl. And that green swirl is sitting right on top of the black and white swirl so that we see the color version. And that's basically it. I'm going to do this 5 times around the graffiti, and that's it. So let me zoom back out. I'm going to select none so I can stop selecting that letter. I'm going to click on like this over here just to get rid of the path so I don't see it anymore. And that looks pretty cool. So it's time for me to pick my next letter. So for me, maybe I'll come and I will, I'll grab this little thing down here. Alright, so before I do that, this has to have its own layer. So I'm going to go to my color copy, and that's why we have this. Create a duplicate. Okay, I moved it down. So here's my new copy. I'm going to call that my second letter. It's going to be the second letter that I am keeping colorized. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn visibility on so I can see it. And I'm going to zoom in. And I am going to create a path around this letter. I'm going to get it selected. I'm going to invert that selection and press delete. And I'm going to do this 5 times. And here's my finished product. I went through 5 times. I got 3 green letters. I've got this red swirl, and I've got this little blue part here. I want you to keep in mind that when I did this red part, I was very careful with my path. Okay, it took some time, and I was very patient. If you look over in the Layers menu, you'll see I have the bottom black and white, which is what's shining through on most of the image. On top of that, I have what I call the first letter for this one that was this piece right here. Then I did the second letter, which was over here. The third one is this thing right here. The fourth is, I believe the fourth one is the red. And the fifth one is the little blue speck. And they're all sitting on top of each other. Now, if I were to turn this top layer, which still has the full color, back to visible, the whole thing goes back to being colorized. Alright, but I'm pretty much done. So you need to go find your own graffiti. You're going to find at least 5 things to keep colorized while you desaturate the rest of the picture. Please keep in mind that as you save it a very specific way. As you work on it, and even when you're done, you should save it as an XCF file. Once again, that's a GIMP file. Now, if I save it as an XCF file and I open it back up, I'll still have all these layers. So I can keep working on it. When I'm totally done, I'm still going to save it as an XCF, but I'm also going to go through and save it as a JPG file, so it can be opened on any old computer. But if I go into GIMP and I open the JPEG version, and that's right here. This could be opened on any computer, but when I reopen it in GIMP, you'll see here that I only have one layer now, because when I save it as a JPEG file, what happens is all those layers, I had like 7 layers, get smushed back together into one layer. So now I can't go through and change one layer or the other layer. Now it's just one single image again. And that's what I do when I'm totally finished, and that's what you send to me, is the JPEG file. So go find some great graffiti and have fun.